Ladies and gentlemen, the stage is set for our first session, Decoding the New Foreign Trade Policy and its Roadmap. This session promises to unravel key aspects that shape the trajectory of the molding industry in India and its global standing. Our distinguished panel of speakers will guide us through the intricacies of the new foreign trade policy, exploring its potential impact on the industry. Now, let's delve into the thought-provoking questions that will be addressed in this session. We will be discussing what does the new foreign trade policy bring to the table? What does the future hold for the molding industry? Will the new foreign trade policy act as a bridge between the global and the Indian molding industry? How does the foreign trade policy aim to unlock the untapped potential in specialized engineering products such as molding and related items? Can it unleash a new surge in India's manufacturing story within the context of the evolving world economic order? Without further ado, let me introduce you to the esteemed panel of speakers who will be sharing their insights on these critical questions. First and foremost, I would like to welcome Mr. G.H. Girisha, Group CFO, Vevin India Private, Vinar Group of Companies. Welcome, sir. Mr. G.H. Girisha is a seasoned strategic finance professional who has held key positions in finance and commercial functions at market leaders such as Lincoln Helios, Higmant Sanke Siede, Arvind, NTTF, and Janapriya Groups. His proficiency encompasses fundraising and mergers and acquisitions, pre-acquisition due diligence, post-buy integration, and leading finance functions for SBUs, divisions, entities, and companies. Currently serving as the Group CFO for Vinar Vevin Group, a company with a legacy of over 50 years in material handling, storage, and conveyor systems, he oversees offices and operations across India. Sir, I would like you to kindly join us on the stage. I would also like to welcome Dr. Kavita Mathad, Dean and Chief Growth Officer, GIBS Business School. Dr. Kavita Mathad, a gold medalist in her post-graduation from Karnataka University and an alumnus of Harvard Business School Online, holds rich academic and research experience. Before joining GIBS Business School, Bangalore as Dean and CGO, she worked at the most eminent institutes and universities like XIME, Alliance University, IM Business School, and Christ University in Bangalore and Galgotias University, Delhi NCR, in various leadership positions and a member of the core team of accreditations or rankings. Dr. Mathad has been known for her leadership acumen in building new perspectives and values in the HEI's ecosystem. Welcome, Dr. Mathad. Our next speaker, jurist Dr. Srikant Parthasarathy, lawyer, CA, and trade policy development expert. Dr. Srikant Parthasarathy, a distinguished legal professional, holds the rights of audience in India and London. With a notable background as a chartered accountant and an awardee from the Chartered Institute of Management Accounts, London, he is an esteemed alumnus of the Christ University. He is certified as an independent director and mediator by the Government of India and has received scholarships such as the Asian Academy Advanced Law Program Scholarship from the National University of Singapore. Dr. Parthasarathy's extensive international engagements include sitting in 34 panels of arbitration, a majority of which are based in European Union and the London Court of International Arbitration. Notably, he was appointed as the Mentor for Change with the policy arm of the Government of India, Niti Aayog, in 2020, and later elevated to the position of Regional Mentor for Change in 2021. Please join your hands in welcoming Dr. Parthasarathy. And to conclude this panel, I would like to include and invite Dr. Ketan Chandarana, CEO, Synergy Global Sourcing. A serial entrepreneur with 31 years of industrial experience and international business, is at the helm of multiple 100% export oriented businesses. Mr. Chandrana has been promoting Make in India for engineering products since 2005, long before the government of India coined the tagline. He's currently CEO of Synergy, a consulting company. CEO Synergy Global Sourcing Hosur, Tamil Nadu, export of engineering products, assemblies and tooling in USA, Canada, UK and China. He is the director, Manufactech Solutions India Private Limited, into contract manufacturing for US and Canadian OEMs, and he's also the CEO of Synergy Global Brands Director, Intercon Asia Pacific Limited, Hosur. Kindly put your hands together and welcome us. This esteemed panel will be starting off the first session of Moldex India conference, and I hope you have a very, very insightful session with them. Thank you. I would request Mr. G.H. Girisha to kindly kick off the session.
Very good morning, all ladies and gentlemen. So, thank you, the team of Moldex, and then all the people connected for inviting us to have this discussion on foreign trade policy. Uh, just taking a couple of cues from our earlier speaker, Mr. Nath. So, how India has progressed in the last decade. And if you look at the foreign trade policy, the were multiple names when you look at the independent India as such. So it started with the industrial policy, which was purely looking at import substitution, and later on it became EXIM policy, and now as a new name as foreign trade policy, where it defines, it all talks about all the rules, regulations, and in the process. I'm audible? Okay. So. Some spark required for the discussion is there from outside. So I think to continue that, and we'll just go through this session where the esteemed panelists will throw some light on how the policy has progressed over the period, and then currently where it is, and then what is it is trying to achieve in the next foreseeable future, and then what are the challenges and opportunities that are available for the molding industry as such. We have the panelists. I'll start with Kavita, who can give us a little background of how the policy has evolved over the years, and then what are those specific gaps which were existing in the earlier policies have been addressed in the current FTP, and then then what is the roadmap that she sees as an academician, and then somebody who is observing the policy from the perspective of what it contributes to the country. Over to you, Kavita.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the organizers for such a wonderful opportunity. I hope I'm audible. Yeah, is it audible now? Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity, and it's a very well organized event. And it's my pleasure to be here, and more so be a part of such a kind of a panel wherein we're going to be discussing about the foreign trade policy. So to start with, and I'll just give you an overview of the foreign trade policy. Well, the new foreign trade policy was something which was quite a weighted one. I guess this step is something which the Indian government had to be taking much before. Like we had the NEP coming up in 2020, while we were awaiting that, okay, the other sectors, the other industries would also be getting a new policy for them. So, but then yes, nevertheless, we had a foreign trade policy which popped up. Now, the speciality of this is like I would be talking about the best practices, which is, or rather, the good ones which we see in the policy are like one thing is like there is no upper limit or the time frame isn't given, which is, I guess, that itself conveys the openness of the policymakers to say and convey to the industry practitioners and the educationists, the academicians, and everybody to come across, discuss, deliberate, look at the nuances, look at the bottlenecks, try to come up with possibly alternate solutions if in case something has got missed in the new trade policy. While the new trade policy has been based on four pillars, one is remission and the promotion and the ease of doing and emerging areas. Emerging areas is again something, which says that there is a lot of openness again from the policy makers, wherein possibly it's now we have realized that again we might be because of the post-COVID or the COVID pandemic that we went through, that it's very much required for us to get digitalized and internationalized. So for this, we have to be facing the challenges, and the challenges run from right at the micro level to the macro perspective. While the policy has has continues with its best practices, it has brought in few newness, like each and every town can identify a particular product, which possibly can be taken internationally, or which is quite promising. Let's say it's quite promising, and that can be taken forward. So with these, I think there we can possibly get into the discussions. Possibly, yeah, yeah. So this is something which is the overview of the trade policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita, for giving a summary in a matter of 2 minutes what happened in the last 25 years. So, taking cue from what you are mentioning, so it started in 2015-20 FTP policy, which is what is a pillar on which the current policy has been framed, as well as tried to be improved upon. We started with Atmanirbhar India, where Make in India was the first concept. Now it is Make in India and Make for the World. So I request Shrikant, just put his thoughts on how does this Make in India to Make for the World. So that is a transition that the molding industry also has to go through, to try to truly become a global player, and then look at the opportunities that are available. And I think he'll be able to add his inputs on this. Thank you, Shrikant.
No, to me, thank you so much, Girisha. Thank you, Dr. Mathad, for the insights into the trade policy. To me, the FTP 2023 was largely a miss from what we saw from the 15-20. Primarily because of the fact that there was a lot of fervor in 2015-20 with the Make in India that we had. It was coupled with demonetization. The Make in India that we saw then was a constant fervor to build things in India, and this is a fantastic way of explaining what Bangalore is. Bangalore is not tech. If you come to this part of Bangalore, which I took time to, I realized that people make things over here, and it is not technology that is being made. I mean, of course, technology is also being made, but literal, real products, tangible products which are being made, not the intangibles that we typically see. Similarly, I think the shift was established long back, and in 2023, I think the miss that I feel is primarily because of the fact that we still lag behind in terms of production, in terms of the I would say the preference that is given to China in sourcing of products, and especially capital goods, which are being sourced from China. And that is, of course, Ketan's view. That's something I'm borrowing from Ketan, but it's just a headline that I'm borrowing from Ketan. Number two is, quite naturally, when you see the number of export consignments, this is the data that I have, that I saw as of 2nd of December 2023. The number of shipments that have gone out from India addressing the molding industry, which is the plastic injection molding industry, you'll see 3,964 shipments that have gone out, as compared to China, which has got 1,31,674 shipments that have gone out. So we are bridging at 3% of what China has. Now there is one more data point. Vietnam is doing 51,000. So we are at 8% of what Vietnam is. Talking about Japan, Japan is doing 40,000. So we are literally 8%, 9% of what Japan is. And put together, we are nowhere crossing as a combined, we're not crossing anywhere above the 1% marker from the global shipment of the molding industry. That is insofar as the molding industry. And in terms of the molding industry, one more data point. The CAGR, which is expected in the molding industry, is 6% or 7%. To achieve the the optimistic data set that we are going to be achieving in 2030. Now compare that to the kind of growth that we need to have, which is about 12%, which quite naturally indicates that the government needs to promote even more than what we have seen in the FTP. The FTP is just a roadmap. It's a vision statement to me. As compared to the FTPs that we saw, the rolling FTP that we saw, 15, 20, 10, 15, and so on and so forth. I think it's a great opportunity for the government to basically signal, like Dr. Mathad said, to signal to the industry that look, we are just going to be providing the vision statement. It is for you to come out with what you want to do, and we'll facilitate you on a case by case or a representation by representation basis. And that's a viewpoint that I take for us to grow into $1 trillion economy. And the government, in my opinion, is quite clear by saying that, look, this is a roadmap. You come to me, tell me what you want to do. We will facilitate. And the government, in the trade policy, there is hint to it. There are 4 pillars that have been established, and the 4th pillar is establishing tier 2 network of export excellence. I think that's a great initiative.
Yeah. Thanks, Shrikant. To put a perspective of what challenges we have right now, as well as also, look at the opportunity that is available. So from doing 3,900 to a competitor who is doing 1,31,000. So we can see where we are currently. At the same time, we can also see what the potential that we can actually reach. Now, I would now move to Ketan with a couple of things. One is, as an industry player, participant, and having seen it for over 3 decades, how he has seen this industry, and then what are the challenges that are specific to this industry that that are being impediment to the growth that we are actually targeting, and then what specific inputs are, what specific processes are to be put in place with government as well as policymakers, and then people who are involved with the industry. What do you, Ketan?
Yeah, thanks, Shrikant and Girisha and Kavita. I think you've kind of summed up pretty much where we are today, and also the path forward. What I firmly believe, and I think this thought will be shared by almost all the industry players, is the next decade is India's decade. And if we don't do things right now, then there is not going to be a better time to set things right and take advantage of the opportunity that's available to us. Everything is in India's advantage today. We are not just a manufacturing destination. I think I would probably say India is a knowledge-based manufacturing destination. We have the technical capabilities, we have the knowledge, we have the expertise and the experience. And talking specifically about this forum as part of the Moldex, a little perspective that I'd like to give over here is in terms of manufacturing dies and molds for the world. Now, Make in India, manufacturing products in India is already taking off in a great way for India and, of course, for exports. But there is also a huge potential for manufacturing dies and molds for the world. Just like Shrikant just mentioned, the shipments from India, especially for the molding industry, has been extremely low in compared to what China is, and China has probably mastered it over decades. We do have the potential. We do also have challenges with respect to taking advantage of the situation. But what I feel is when Make in India is taking off in a big way, the dies and molds industry is basically going to be full or maybe over capacity in trying to meet the Indian domestic requirements of manufacturing products and components for India. But what I strongly feel is that India should take advantage of making dies and molds for the world. And we've had a lot of experience in the last couple of years in trying to make breakthroughs and inroads into this industry, despite challenges and despite reluctance, not only from Indian manufacturers saying we can't beat China, we can't compete against China. There was also reluctance from the customer side, from the die maker, from the die users, and the casting manufacturers and injection molding part manufacturers in North America, especially. They were reluctant to try out India. Uh, just to give you a story and an example, my colleague Ragesh is here, and we both worked together on trying to make breakthroughs and inroads into this industry for the last 3 years. We submitted over 150 proposals for dies and molds, and we got only one order. So that was encouraging, but then we learned a lot. We are at a point where we've really understood what the nuances are, what the challenges are. Couple of things we've understood, and I'd like to probably share it over here. But we've come to a point where we have understood the game pretty well, and we're at a point where we were at a point 6 months ago where we were close to the finish line, and we said we are giving up. This is just not making sense, and let's not go any further. But then something, sparked with one of our big customers in the US, and they said, look, we've bought something and it's working well. Why aren't we buying more? Why aren't we exploring more? And then the ball started rolling all over again. So why I'm quoting this example is many of us, Indian manufacturers and exporters, engineering exporters especially, we get disheartened, discouraged that, okay, this is not working. Let's not, fool around with this anymore. But I think we shouldn't give up. And sometimes we are so close to the finish line that it's blurred and it's not visible, and we just turn back and go. I'm definitely not one of those people who want to, turn back and give up. And my vision is shared by many of our manufacturing partners that we work with. And we've seen the same story. We can't compete against China. We can't do this. We can't do that. But if you really look at it, there is a possibility. It's just a different paradigm, a different mindset that we need to look at it from, not from the traditional way of how we're doing things. And also the ambition and aspirations to scale up has to be much higher. Like the government environment is very supportive today. Foreign trade policy, yes, it is definitely supportive. But then what happens is, as industry players, we have to engage not in a very generic manner, but in a very specific manner with the government, saying, okay, hypothetically speaking, why can't there be a special economic zone or a manufacturing park for dies and molds alone, only for exports? Because according to me, it's a $50 to $100 billion business. Indian engineering exports is itself $110, $115 billion annually. From 2021 to 2022 or 2022 2023, we have seen a drop in engineering exports by about 4 or 5%, which is very disheartening. But I think that's a temporary blip, I would say. And going forward, I definitely see that we're going to be a significant part of the $1 trillion or $5 trillion economy, and engineering exports is a major contributor to that. So I think the potential is great, and we just need to engage with the government a little bit more actively and make them realize what is needed. And talk about it a few more in my next round. So those are my thoughts.
I'll have a couple of more minutes from you. So we are, Ketan, back to you again. Because you just mentioned that, the potential is, immense, and then, there are specific challenges. When you look at, want to scale up your in a industry or a unit, or, you want to set up something new, obviously, there is, you look at capital, you look at material, you look at resources. Do you have any specific, thoughts on what are the major inputs? Like, for example, maybe the tool steel, or there are other inputs that are being procured, and there is duties. If it is being procured locally, there could be taxes on them, and then also challenge of getting the funding for each of these. And then you are talking of purely looking at an export market. Then then you don't have a comparison available right now. for any, for example, tool steel not being made in India, majorly. So you're dependent on, importing it from somewhere else. So like that, if you have specific inputs that the industry must push on, and then stress upon the government, then it will be, those can be, brought to the table. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd probably like to take advantage of Mr. Nath sitting here because he represents Germany and India. And interestingly, a majority of the tool steel coming into India for the molding and tooling industry comes from Germany. And tool steel that comes from Japan, like from Hitachi, fortunately, we have a free trade agreement with Japan. So the tariffs of tool steel coming into India is 0%. Whereas most American and European manufacturers, if they were to source dies and molds from India, they would specify German steel. And Germany qualified, I mean, their own qualified heat treatment shops in India. If you can engage with large steel makers in India and set up steel making shops over here, like they have in China already, I think that will be a big relief and it will be a big competitive edge for Indian exporters or Indian tools and tool and die makers. Not only for exports, but even for consumption within India. That will open up a huge market. So because today we are paying close to 15 to 20% tariff on premium, tool steel coming into India. At the same time, we use a lot of sensors, a lot of elements within the dies and molds, which are, I mean, Germany is definitely high quality in engineering, and nobody would want to compromise. They wouldn't want to save a few dollars and try and compromise on the performance of a die and mold. So, trying to set up active partnerships for especially everything that goes into dies and molds with Indian manufacturers, or engage with Germany to try and create a free trade agreement. I think we are already in discussion with UK. I don't know if we are in discussions with Germany already, but that would be a great help and a great support for increasing the capabilities and the export content from India. So I don't know if Mr. Nath would like to share any of his thoughts on this. I mean, I'd really like to hear something from you.
So by this truly becomes a participative discussion. So,
So,
welcome.
yeah, thank you. So, Ketan, I think a very valid point you raised. And this EU-India free trade discussion is on since 12 years. So, it's almost already 12 years this discussion is going on. But as you pointed out, once this EU-India free trade agreement does take place, it will give also the German suppliers the same benefit as what you mentioned about US. But I think it is certainly one aspect which is under consideration, and it can benefit, I think, both the countries, or EU and India, immensely. Also, Mr. Girisa, as I mentioned, the bilateral trade between Germany and India is increasing. So actually, it will be a win-win situation. It will give the Indian suppliers or the Indian manufacturers also a broader market, as well as the German exports to India in engineering technology sector is also doing well. So that would be.
I think that's a perfect win-win scenario. I mean, for both Germany as well as India, because especially in Moldex or in the molding and die making industry, Germany is a very, very active element or a very active factor to make India competitive. So something like that would really give a great, boost to the industry is what I feel. Yeah.
So thank you, Ketan. Thank you, Rajesh, for your valuable inputs. I think, taking cue from what you are mentioning about the taxes and duties. So now one of the pillars of the FTP is move to the remission rather than the reimbursement. So how do you? I would like to hear from Shrikant, and how does this, because obviously you have to align with the WTO regulations related to the remission, rather than you can't be looking at only the DBK and then the other stuffs. So how does he see current challenges that we have, because you don't have FTA with all the countries. So then what are the countries which are potential partners like us? Then Germany is one example. Like that, any other countries that we can look at for getting this speeded up, and then what kind of work that needs to be done are the focus areas for the government. So if you can put your thoughts on that.
No, I think, sorry, I think FTA is constantly being planned, or I would say penciled in the trade discussions that are going on with the Ministry of External Affairs. And I think the Eurozone FTA, as well as the UK FTA, as well as Japan, are all on the anvil. The government is taking it quite seriously. And if you see the data point that I've given, the number one being China. Of course, China is something that we are trying to circumvent through the entire. They have come up with the BRI, we have come up with the Quad, and so on and so forth. But if you see the second and third, which is Vietnam, Vietnam is again a part of ASEAN, so they've got their own structure in terms of the trade policy. The third one, we have picked up a, I wouldn't say a lightweight, but we have picked up the one that we can very closely work with is Japan. And if you see India and Japan, the moment we crack Japan, the number of consignments which are going out of Japan is about 40,000. And that's literally capturing from a merger and acquisition point of view. I mean, talking your language, Girisha, uh, we have literally captured about half of the market which is out there by the Japan FTA. So, and of course, there will be more trickle down effect which will come through from the UK FTA too. So, I think the government is very serious from the FTA point of view. In terms of the effect that it may have on this particular industry, it is yet to be seen. That requires a lot of negotiation, that requires a lot of representations in terms of what could be the potential incentives that the government could grant to this particular sector. That remains to be seen, because when it comes to molding, the only time that the government has ever spoken in the last year was in terms of revising or relaxing its comet policy with respect to the usage of molds which are used in UAVs, which are for civilian use. That is the only time that the government has ever spoken the language of molding. Now, the UAV itself, we were speaking about that yesterday. The UAV itself is a $30 billion market, and that's a big market that needs address. And India and the molding sector is the perfect sector for that to be addressed. And if you see, that's the India market. And when you talk about the global market, that's a $100 billion, $200 billion market. So I think the government is not speaking directly to the molding sector in the FTP. And I agree with Ketan's view, which is we need to go to the government, go with a radical thought, and go with certain thought process, and say that, look, this is what we want to contribute to the growth story of India, and what is it that the government can do. I think the government is quite open to it in terms of hearing new avenues that we can contribute to the entire trade facilitation, I would say. That's my view.
Thank you, Shrikant. You said, trade facilitation. I'll move on to Kavita. Because the fourth pillar of the policy, which is, collaboration for growth. And, what are her, where the government is looking at, facilitating MSMEs through a MSME ministry as such, and also through NSIC, which is a nodal agency which does most of this coordination related to trade fairs, participations, then subsidizing MSMEs for registrations and getting accreditations, and then even looking at star house category and things, so on and so forth. So I request Kavita, if she can throw some light on these as a potential growth area for people who actually want to come into the industry, or who are already there, who want to grow from their current capabilities. How the FTP is addressing their procedural aspects, where getting an IEC, or getting an IO norms being set up, and there are so many improvements that are being proposed as well as put in place over the last year. I can just correlate something like, as an exporter, now you don't have to do a lot of paperwork related to your export obligation, your, BRC submission, getting, bill of to be submitted, all of this. Now all of this is electronic. So, and, you don't have to run around from one office to the other office to get your stuff done and, do the compliance part as such. So there is a huge movement towards digitalizing the whole process. And then the digitalization obviously will mean that the time taken for in any of the procedures are being cut down. For example, IEC used to take 7-8 days or almost weeks together earlier. Now today it is a matter of 24 to 48 hours. So like that, if there are what are those changes that have happened in the policy which are very relevant for the audience, where they see that no, there is a huge amount of paperwork, documentation, answer too many questions, don't understand these processes. But, now we are getting into more and more transparent interaction, and then exchange of data. So I request Kavita to share a few points on them, and then then
Yeah.
thanks.
In line with what Ketanji said and what Dr. Shrikant said, and including Girisha, um, if we see this FTP, it's more in a very it's in a holistic way, like any other policies. So if we exactly look at the molding industry, might not be specifically getting covered, but then what I see here is from a very positive per se, wherein it does connect with almost all sectors, important sectors, including the promising industries of Indian economy. Now, if we look at molding specifically, then this is much more connected with the manufacturing. Now, having said this, I think I'll be just talking about one dimension, but then I also see molding industry to be connected well with the FMCG goods as well, with the service industries as well. Because more or less, now if I talk about digitalization or ITES industry, we do come across, wherein a simple thing like packaging, or healthcare sector, let's say. There are so many medical devices, there are so many medical associated, instruments, and with robotic surgery coming in and becoming quite popular than the actual surgeons, doing the operations. So this industry really has a great future, and as I said at the beginning of my talk, this was something which was awaited long back, but nevertheless, it is now here, and I think we will be able to come across all those challenges. We will be able to possibly do away with the challenges like even the precision of the molding industry. I mean, when it comes to plastic, that seems to be quite a dominating one in the molding industry. While the metal, when it comes to the metal, casting or rather molding, that's slightly lesser, which is purely related to manufacturing and the, wherein the OEMs come into the picture. I think India, by the nature, the kind of population we have, and we really have great minds here in India. And apart from we having calling it, I mean, if I can call it as intellectual capital, along with that, we are also very good at frugal innovation, right? So something which we call as jugaad. We are very good at that, right from our day-to-day operations to our work to our, so we figure out a way to get the things done. I think this frugal innovation aptitude that Indian population or Indian workforce has is definitely going to take this particular industry way ahead. But then, yes, what we need to also take care of is the compliance part of it, and that's what the FTP talks about. It talks about like we are ready to help you, and these are the aspects. Now you also tell us from your end that what is that, which is also required. I think the industry, as Dr. Shrikant was also saying, the government, if it connects directly with the OEMs, then I think most of these, aspects or issues or challenges which are connected with the molding industries are possibly going to fade away uh, quite at a faster pace, because if we don't run fast now, then we are not going to reach our destination. And I think this is the right time to we are already there, in the international market. We have a fame there, but then now we need to tangibly prove that through the manufacturing aspect. We are already there, popularly known for service industry. I think manufacturing industry, Bharat Forge makes us very proud in the international market. I think I can say this very proudly. Though our students might not be knowing, in especially the management area wherein I come from, but then the engineering students, I'm sure they would be knowing about. So, having companies like this, which have really seen the struggle of the manufacturing industry.
Thanks, Kavita. Thanks. When you're saying, challenges, one thing which keeps coming to my mind, also taking a couple of points from what Ketan was mentioning. Out of 150 proposals, 2 gets converted into an order. So there is, we keep hearing that, the quality standards that is expected, that is one big challenge. And also, how do we handle this IPs? So I would like to hear from Shrikant that, how does the, the legal consequences of anti-dumping, as well as other taxes and other duties and taxes related to that will have an impact on this industry, and then how government can actually help us in getting over that particular aspect, as well as industrial players. What is that we need to be extremely careful when we are dealing with the export market. So anti-dumping is one aspect which definitely will have an impact. Your thoughts on that, Shrikant?
No, I think I before we even go to anti-dumping, I think the analysis that we need to be making is, are we procuring from China and perhaps sending it to the world market? At the moment, we are not. We are not. It comes into account only if we are procuring from China, we are sending it to the international markets, and we are leveraging the low cost which is available in China. I think the importers of the other countries are quite comfortable with importing from China. We need to, I would say, unlock the secret of what China is offering. A is definitely the cost, and B is also the investment that they're doing in quality, which is acceptable quality in the global markets. Of course, there is a German quality which is available, but I think the acceptable quality is a different quality which is out there.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a demand for the acceptable quality. I don't know if there is a. Yes.
Sorry, speaking of quality, which is a subject very close to my heart. I mean, we've seen the transition happening over the last 2 decades, where Indian engineering quality used to be doubted, but I think we are not there today. I think the acceptability and the confidence level in what comes from India is extremely high, and more importantly, I've seen horror stories of large OEMs sourcing from China and what information they share with us about their experiences. You would not see that over here. You would see, Chinese manufacturers even fudging test reports and material reports and everything that happens. You would not see that from India. I think there's a lot of trust with Indian manufacturers today, and the transparency that the world has with India is much, much more higher. German quality is like, of course, you can't doubt it. But when it comes to manufacturing from India for the world, I think we are there already. We don't really need to work hard. Just be honest, just be sincere with what is required. Give what the customer wants, and don't fool around with anything. Incorporating the world's, the global technical standards, whether it's the German standards or British standards or whether it's American standards, trying to assimilate and incorporate those standards into our manufacturing processes, I see that as a challenge and a little reluctance. But when there is a potential, Indians don't shy away from it today. We've seen that, and we are getting our manufacturers to get into certifications and approvals and things like that, something they wouldn't even think of. So I think there's hesitation, but there is confidence, there is capability. More importantly, the world trusts India, is what I think as a very big advantage. The intellectual property is protected in India, which is another big advantage. So, I mean, you can tick all those boxes, but then ultimately the industry has to step forward, take the risks, take the initiative. Don't get, don't shy away from taking initiatives and solving the roadblocks and working on those roadblocks. So as far as quality is concerned, I think we are there. There is really no doubt in my mind or anybody's mind over here that we can do it. I mean, we can meet the quality standards and we don't compromise. So that way, I think there really isn't any doubt or skepticism in anybody's mind. And the world also has that level of trust and confidence in India.
On the tax perspective, if I may add, we were just discussing about the tax incentives that may follow through. It's much more difficult to call yourself a startup, especially in the molding industry in India right now. It used to be a lot easier in 2016. You can pop up an industry in this particular area in Jigni, and you can call yourself a startup. It's much more difficult. There are lot more riders. I think the government needs to facilitate a lot of things in terms of people now shy away from calling themselves a startup. And by all means, in the export, I would say the export theme which is out there, especially in molding, India is still a startup. India is a startup. So I think that needs to be re-emphasized. More incentives have to follow through. More tangible incentives have to follow through, and not vision statements in a policy is what I feel.
So when you say India is a startup, so obviously then my next question would be, what do you see as a future for the molding industry? Now looking at A, internally from the industry, as well as also B, from the policy push, as well as any other broader cues that we can draw from the policy and other parameters.
Girisha, I'm a limited partner in a venture capital company. And if you came to me and you said that, look, we have penetrated only 3% of the international market, I will literally invest in that particular startup. So I think that's a story that we need to weave.
Yes.
It's a story which is ripe, and it's a story that we need to weave to the entire world. And the FTAs need to specifically protect the Indian exporters, especially in this particular sector, considering the fact that UAVs are the future. Civilian use of UAVs are the future, and not the commercial use. We're talking about civilian use, and hobby use is a future. It's a specific input that the government needs to take, and the government, I believe, would not go out of the way and promote this particular sector. There needs to be representation, and this representation has to go from this particular forum.
Perfect, perfect. So then coming to you, Ketan, this if you can summarize, from an industry perspective, Shrikant has put few, it's like obviously the crying baby will get the milk. At the same time, there is a if government can't make policy for each and every industry exactly meeting to the requirement, so there is always some delegation that has to happen, as well as what kind of, how do we put those specific inputs that are required. And do you see that if any skill development centers or quality management centers, the policy talks of export towns of export excellence, and trying to involve the local government developing the clusters. So do you see that from an industry perspective, how that cooperation can happen, and how the each and every participant of the industry, as well as the people who are involved and related to the industry, can come together, and what are those specific things that you may need from the participants, if you can just list down them. So and then we'll take few questions from the audience also, and then try to address them to summarize, which will also tell us what the roadmap is, and then what is required from us as an industry, as a molding industry, and then what inputs we require from the other participants.
Yeah, I think that's really very important, and trying to work on skill development, and also more than skill development, I would say knowledge development. Especially in innovations, and not trying to do just what everybody does, but trying to find better solutions to problems, and innovation for for the molding industry, and I would also say the high pressure die casting tooling industry. They are equally big in their own sense. I see some partnerships happening, especially one example I can quote is the government of Tamil Nadu, SIPCOT, for example, has set up 3 innovation centers and involving highly skilled engineers and innovators from the industry for manufacturing. There's one in Coimbatore, one in Hosur, and one in Chennai. Very interesting. I mean, people should look it up. SIPCOT, it's called Fort Forge or something like that. I'll probably share more information, to the group. But then, what I see that as a positive step, wherein they're bringing in not just the students from who are passing out of college and skilling them and improving their knowledge, but also bringing the users and the industry participants and the innovators and the leaders of the industry together and trying to create not just training centers, but these are actual hands-on innovation shops, where people learn by doing. Mere training is not going to help. People have to learn by doing, getting them engaged, getting them involved in that. So I think that's a positive step, and I think it must be happening in other parts of the country as well. That's really important to kind of strengthen the knowledge base and also foster innovation in especially in the molding industry or in the manufacturing industry in general. Government institutes today are very open to support. They say that nobody is coming to us. For example, if you look at CIPET, they are so open. They said, please come to us with your problems and we will provide you with solutions. There are experts, there are brains sitting there, but maybe everybody is not using them. So there are a lot of scientists, a lot of innovators, and a lot of engineers sitting in some of these institutes, the government institutes, which no more function as traditional government institutes. They have incentives, they have targets, they have goals clearly set as to what they need to do, how they need to engage with the government and with the industry. So I think that engagement is happening. The gap needs to be bridged by both sides. The industry especially needs to identify the need and reach out and then close the gap and work on where the gaps are. So skill development is an area that needs to be really improved, and innovation is another area which needs to be fostered in a big way. Just as an example, there are certain areas in dies and molds where Chinese companies hold global patents. I don't see that happening in India. I don't see Indian companies coming out with an innovative technology in the dies and molds industry where they can claim to have a leadership position in certain areas. Now, when you try to do, these patents are so innovative that they get used by users all over the world, whether it's Europe or North America. Now, if you try to do manufacturing in India, then you are at the mercy of the pricing, which is a dominant pricing from some of these manufacturers. Now, why should we be at the mercy of these players? Why can't we have the brains, we have the knowledge, we have the foundation of engineering in the country? We should be able to, foster innovation and come out with inventions from India, and Indian companies and Indian inventors should be holding global patents in some of these areas, and that is possible.
Yeah. Thanks, Ketan. Thanks, Shrikant. And coming to you, Kavita, I just sign your card, in a visiting card. You have put learn, earn, and return. So, how do you apply that concept? I'm just trying to take a cue from your card. The industry players, they have learned the art. They have to earn also from that, and then to the return. So when it comes to return, that is where everyone wants to hold on to the knowledge, or that's a general very common human behavior. So but when you want to grow as a community, then the return is also very important. So we are also trying to see how discussing how the industry can come together and do this. Can you share some examples if you have seen in your academic research that where an industry association has broke those molds earlier, now practices of trying to hold on to the knowledge or the information. Today government is coming with participation, private, public, private, and also government participation, trying to set up technology centers with private participants. Just yesterday Tata Tata Electronics, as Tata Group has said it will invest 18,000, $3 billion in Telangana to set up 55 skill development centers across the government technology centers. So they came up with a similar thing 6 months back in Karnataka, where they said they will set up, quality excellence centers where they will work with MSMEs within the state. So there is a always a give and take. So as an industry player, and how this particular work thing can be worked out, and if you have any examples or any stories that you can share, that will help us understand it better and respond and then work on that.
Yeah, that was a good question, but then very difficult to answer as well. Why? Because the fact goes like this. I think we are really very bad at sharing knowledge. When it comes to, especially when we think that we are doing something very different. Now, talking about the academic research, the same thing happens. Uh, but then, one particular, because you asked for an example, I'll just quote this one quick example wherein I was doing a case study uh, write up. So generally in academics we require these publications, we have to have. So case studies is one way, because I teach at the business schools. So taking them to the industry, one easiest way for us is through case studies. So I was writing a case study on a manufacturing unit, which is something from my native place, and this is something which is into food processing industry, right? So they prepare the sweets, and very popular one, and they have all, they're very promising, and people across in the state know them and very popular. I cannot quote their name here on this forum. But then the challenge here was for them, of course, they were reaching almost all cities within Karnataka. But the thing here is they had quite a good demand from the international market as well, because one is there are quite natives who have settled down abroad, and even be it the US or be it the Europe, they had a good amount of quantity of demand from these countries as well. Now, the biggest challenge that this particular SME owner was facing was the packaging, right? And he also had this idea. See, generally how it happens when a sweet dish is packed, it's packed in either a 250 grams or a 500 grams or 100 to 1 kg, you know. So it is either packed this way, or it generally goes like this. If it's a wholesale, then it goes in a much more bigger packaging. But then this entrepreneur had a very specific idea, wherein he thought that he will sell it as goodies in the stores. So for so that it's just been kept just like wherein near the billing counters as well, for more of those impulsive marketing aspect. Now his problem was like packaging, because if he goes like packaging in tablet kind of a form, then the sweet gets sweat out, you know, and it's actually not he was actually, in fact, cutting it story short, he was actually struggling to you know to figure out the most suitable package. Now I'm talking about at least 4 years back. This case study I did 4 years back, and this was the issue for him. So till now he is not able to figure out. Now somewhere he left the idea also. Why? Because he is really earning good amount of money with what he is currently doing also. So I think somewhere people also lose interest when they are not getting connected with. Now either this curiosity or a passion should get converted into obsession, wherein okay, I have to do this. Let me get something. Let me get connected to somebody. So he just dropped it. I think somewhere forums like this, attending people who have a solution, who also have a problem. I think these common platforms are going to be really helping, eventually India grow at a larger extent, I guess. So that's the reason why I was also saying that I think digitalization is, we have to be there on a social media or a common platform. Not necessarily when I say social media, it's Insta or it's LinkedIn. but then a common platform wherein possibly entrepreneurs like this can post their issues, and somebody who have solutions, who can cater to the solutions, can actually ping them, and then there is some kind of a solution which is given for these kind of entrepreneurs. I think I have done justice to your question. Thank you for that
Yeah,
question.
okay. I think now we are open for the. Shrikant, would like to add anything further from the policy perspective? Ketan, good to go. Okay, thank you, the panelists. I think the takeaway that I can look at is there are facts which are, may not be very happy to be accepted, but there is a huge potential that can be worked out. But at the same time, as an industry, molding industry can definitely come forward and come out with the specific challenges that is facing, and then have a proper representation with the government. Like I just try to give an example. The earlier, if you were to take any input output norm to be set specifically for your own product, which is slightly different from what already set in, it is a humongous task. I have myself experienced where I had to work for 3 months with the DGFT in Delhi to set a norm specifically for the product which we were making, which was different from what norms were set as a generic product, which was in textiles. The industry was textiles. So, but at the end of the day, at the end of 3 months, we made some, not only, it is a techno-commercial representation that has to be made to explain the composition of the product, and then what is the duty incidence on it, what are the embedded taxes, and what is the drawback that is currently being given, and how we compared with the other countries, like Bangladesh or China, we were at a disadvantage because our government had not looked at that particular product as a category. But it took 3 months time for us to convince them. But today, you look at the FTP, where they have a seamless data that can be available in the portal, where you can scout it based on the HSN codes, and you can identify input output norm for every product which is available, irrespective of it was set for whom. Earlier, this information was not available to everybody. You had to go there and dig out this data if there is a specific IO norm has been set. So if you are buying it, tool steel, then you import it at particular one through advance authorization or any other scheme. Then if there is a challenge, if your particular die is beyond that IO norm, then today, looking at the policy digitization, as Kavita was mentioning, so I see that that they are the places where the processes have been simplified tremendously over a period of time. Similarly, getting IEC, or even if you're an MSME, you want to go and register for Star House, your turnover limits are reduced, and even the fees for getting those certifications are reduced drastically, and also the timelines. Some process which was taking 41 working days is today 3 working days to 7 working days. So there are government is absolutely positive, and and also receptive to this. That is where that one aspect of there is no sunset to this FTP, which only says even in fact this was announced on 31st March. Before December, there is a follow-up report on the FTP which has come out, and says what have been done in the last 9 months. So something like October 3rd, there was an announcement on the Star Houses. How digitizing it, how it has been digitized, where the whole data is collected from your bank, your customs ports, and then you get your self-declaration for your getting a Star House. And once you are a Star House, then depending on your category, what you can do, and there is a preferential treatment in customs clearances, and the easier process, easier and reduced timelines. So I think there is a huge potential for us to go from where we are currently, but that can be only be done where we as participants, as an entrepreneurs, as individual industry undertakings, as well as a collective industry, have to make a proper representation. And I'm sure it will open up many newer areas, and then open up for better tie-ups with countries like Japan, as Shrikant was mentioning. So I feel thank you. I should thank the panelists and also Mr. Rajesh Nath for sharing quite valuable inputs. We are now open for any questions from the crowd.
First, I think it was a very interesting panel discussion. So I think compliments to all the panelists and also Giri sir for moderating this session. I had a specific question, Dr. Shrikant. If we see the development, global development, what is happening in the last 5 to 6 years, in fact, I think it started when President Trump was in power. The countries are actually closing themselves. We had America first, we are talking about Make in India. Are we moving from globalization to regionalization?
Well, regionalization has always been the order. The it's an innate principle of global economy to have first a regional focus and then a global focus. And if you see, India has been. I mean, not everything is bad. India has been quite working quite closely with all the countries and saying that look, we will not be a greater part of the greater regional order, just like the eurozone, where everything follows through to every country which is part of the eurozone. But what we will do is we'll negotiate specifically on what we want with particular countries. Now there is a make in India, and then there is an export from India. So we make in India, we export from India. That does not mean that we'll never import. So we'll have the free trade agreement to ensure that what we send, what we bring from the other country, is part of the overall economic order. Now, is there a I would say closing of doors? No. We are certainly not saying that we'll not work with. Of course, in the trade policy, it clearly says that with the Democratic Republic of North Korea will not do it. People's Republic of North Korea will not do it. Will not do it. The FTP, surprisingly, in spite of every hue and cry about China, doesn't talk anything about China, and doesn't say that look, we'll not do certain things with China and so on and so forth. And the ban on the Chinese apps is still there in India. That's insofar as the regionalization that we have gone to, and we've said that look, we will with Iran will not do things, with North Korea will not do things. Apart from these two countries, nobody else are we even touching. So I think for the economy, the government is very clear. For us to survive, it's all nice and to show that look, it's all make in India. Of course, we'll make in India, but of course we'll sell it for the entire world. That's a I think that's a fair strategy when the other country is also doing the same thing.
I, I think the difference is okay. The policy may mention, but if you look at the ground level, ground realities, we are not this thing, but we are not allowing, for example, Chinese visas for the Chinese service people. So in a way, I mean to say, I didn't. My question was not specific for India. My question was more directed on a global scenario. In fact, more and more countries, rather than talking about globalization now, are looking at their own interests. That was on a broader perspective. I wanted to put this
Because
across.
the world, if you see, there is a Euro bloc, then there is a BRI which is coming through. Then so the world wants to go towards narrow regionalization, which is not a regional perspective. Of course, you as a country, you'll have to, apart from yeah, the entire world is not your citizens. Your citizens are the people around you. So there needs to be a story. So the I would say the regionalization which is happening in the entire the soundboard that you're seeing is, yes, they're trying to. For example, UK is a great example. They were part of the Euro zone. They broke away and they said that look, we are going to be doing what we do in UK. We are going to be having ports. We're going to be having we're going to be servicing the entire financial sector sitting in London. So I think the regionalization that is happening is uh, is one which needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. And when it comes to the greater economic order, the countries know very well, and they'll not shy away from this, that there is greater business to be done by not shutting their doors, but to being open.
If I can add to what Dr. Shrikant said, if the question was more connected to countries looking towards themselves, then I think that was the scenario pre-COVID. A lot of deglobalization aspects, the whole world was noticing. But then COVID is again one, which made people look outside as well. And not just people, when I say even the countries also. So even the countries also became more compassionate towards the other countries. And that's wherein, again, we see, again, I'm sure all of my panelists also will agree. We are seeing, again, a globalization trend which is moving forward. Though, yes, when it comes to food security and things like that, each country is more, thinking on its own terms, which is just like households, like, it's just like how we as individual think. So I think, yeah.
I sit on the board of a particular company, and we just accepted payment in yen. We're not shunning away from the Chinese. I mean, when it comes to money, we're not.
Yeah, I know. Of course, the FTP also puts a focus on getting realizations in INR. So so that is there, and we are talking of, even if you look at even courier exports, where the people anywhere in the world can pay in INR and using any of the UPI apps. So yes, when it comes to money and it comes to then food. So these two are anyway both are household items. So so we restrict ourselves to what we can do best for ourselves. So any more questions? Are we done? Thank you for all your time, and then thank you the organizations for organizers for calling us, and then having this giving us an opportunity to discuss on this such a vast subject. But we try to identify what is specific to the industry, and then what are the challenges, and then maybe through the discussions we have been able to identify the few of the points that we can actually work on, and hope for a better future for the country as well as for the industry. Thank you all. Thank you panelists once again.
Check. Sorry. A heartfelt thank you to our esteemed panelists, Mr. G.H. Girisha, Dr. Kavita Mathad, jurist Dr. Srikant Parthasarathy, and Mr. Ketar Chandrana for sharing your profound insights in this enlightening session. Your experience and expertise has truly enriched our understanding of the new foreign trade policy and its potential impact on the molding industry. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Rajesh Nath, Managing Director of VDMA India, and Mr. Mukesh Kharya, the Division Director of Messi Stuttgart India, to the stage to felicitate our distinguished panel of speakers. Mr. G.H. Girisha, thank you for guiding us and moderating this session. Kindly give the certificate to Dr. Kavita Mathad for her invaluable input to the session. Next, jurist Dr. Srikant Parthasarathy, thank you for your insights. And lastly, thank you, Mr. Ketan Chandrana, for your valuable time and insights to the session. I would request all members on the stage to kindly grace us with your presence for our final